All right, our big story today, Penn State under fire for its handling of child sex abuse allegations against former assistant football coach Jerry Sandusky. So joining me here to discuss the legal consequences or ramifications of all this, criminal defense attorney Holly Hughes. So Holly, let's talk about head coach Joe Paterno for a minute. We're going to talk about that for a minute. But I want to talk about Mike McQuarrie. He's the Penn State coach, 2002 graduate assistant, said he witnessed Sandusky and a young boy. And I want everybody to imagine what like, a 10-year-old boy looks like. I don't think people realize the average size of a 10-year-old boy. I mean, you just say it. I wanted to put up a picture, say, this is what a 10-year-old boy looks like. So just picture that, and you see that. Was he legally compelled to tell police?
You know, unfortunately, we're not. You know, there's no good Samaritan law. Nobody can force you to get involved or stop a crime or something like that. It's more of a moral obligation, an ethical obligation. But no, he was not, you know, he didn't have to intervene. As a human being, I don't understand how you can witness a 10-year-old child being violated like that and not do something. And here's the thing, Don. He's a big man. He's 6'4", 200+ pounds, and Sandusky was naked at the time. So if you rushed over there, grabbed the child, and ran out of the locker room, he's not going to follow you, okay? So, yeah, he could have absolutely intervened and stopped that assault right on the spot, and then we'd know who that victim is. We still don't know who that victim is.
That's why he hasn't been charged. That's why Paterno hasn't been, but, you know, Curley and Schultz have been. And then in the complaint here it says, I just grabbed it here. Legislature was notified by 2 different Penn State employees of the alleged sexual exploitation of youth. Pennsylvania's mandatory reporting statute for suspected child abuse is located, and they give it, and they say provides that a staff or a member of a school reports abuse pursuant to that within 48 hours. Within 48 hours to the Department of Public Welfare of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, an oral report should have been made to the Center County Children and Youth Services. And then it goes on to explain that. So they had 48 hours. They were supposed to report it to some sort of agency.
That's exactly right. And that's where they fell down on the job. And that's why we're still talking about the possibility of additional charges against these people, because we all know, let's just call it what it is, pedophilia, okay? That's not a one-time act, Don. You don't just have sex with the 10-year-old boy once and then stop. These men had to know, it is common knowledge, that this is an ongoing proclivity, okay? And Sandusky had adopted children in his home, and nobody intervened. Nobody went to the police. Okay,
let's talk about Paterno. We know he said after McQuarrie, he said he was shocked. The young boy, this is allegedly, according to the report, saw him. And he was so upset, he went and he told his father. His father said, come over, leave and come over. The next morning, they go to Joe Paterno's house. So here's the thing. So in this, they may not be legally culpable in this case. What about civil? Do we know? Is that?
I think there will be a lot of civil suits coming, and it'll be from every victim from that point on. Because at that point in time, Paterno and the higher-ups had that duty to report to the Welfare Society, to some agency that handles child abuse, and they didn't do so. So, yes, there is going to be an amazing amount of culpability that will come from these civil suits. And if enough victims come forward, and honestly, 15 years, he could have abused so many people, he could be looking at a class action.
All right, let's talk about Pennsylvania's whistleblowing law, because some people are wondering why Paterno and not McQuarrie. Does he have some sort of I guess this whistleblowing law helping him in some way because he was the first one to notify people?
Right, exactly. And he's also in a subservient position. At the time, he was a graduate assistant. So it's not like he's the head of the football program like Joe Paterno is. He's not the vice president of finance like Curley is. So he's not in a position of power. He goes to his boss, Paterno, and he says, this is it. Paterno turns around, goes to his boss, and says, now we know about this. At that point, that's where they fail. That's where they fall down on the job. Because, see, as a graduate assistant, he's not in that power authority position. But he's notifying the people who are and saying, this is occurring, and it's occurring on our campus. And that's where they fell down. They didn't further that complaint.
I heard some of the students on a news program saying, well, you know, we don't know what Joe Paterno knew, and he hasn't, you know, we haven't found out the whole story. And we haven't. We haven't found out the whole story. But I do think it's very telling in that Joe Paterno himself said, my only failing, the only thing I wish in hindsight is that I had done more. That I had done more. That's very telling.
It's a tacit admission, Don. And one of the things that I find really startling is part of the Penn State alma mater is, may we do nothing to bring shame upon this institution. Come on. Every single one of those guys fell down on the job when it comes to that.
Let's talk about Dominique Strauss-Kahn. We got carried away with the other subject earlier. The former IMF chief who returned to France after rape charges against him were dropped in the U.S. is linked to another scandal. This one involves an alleged prostitution ring, and he wants to talk about it. How does that benefit him, and where are his lawyers?
Well, his lawyers are the reason he hasn't talked so far. He's, of course, been lambasted in the French media now, which he thought if he got out of the United States charges and went home, he'd be embraced. His problem is that they're crucifying him in the French press, and he wants to defend himself. He wants to come out and say, I'm not guilty of this. The reason we haven't seen such a statement is because he does have lawyers, and they're telling him, keep your mouth shut.
Man, the stories
Can't help.
The stories this week, a lot of men behaving badly. Let's talk about an Illinois man suing the city of Chicago, saying that he was stunned with a taser 11 times by police. So, Holly Hughes, police didn't apologize for that incident, right?
Correct.
He's 27 years old. His name is Jose Tapia. He says police stunned him repeatedly with that taser, confusing him with a wanted man with the same name. Hospitalized for injuries, federal lawsuit against the city, all of that. Where does this case stand?
Well, what happened was they actually charged this man, who was not the person they were looking for, with aggravated battery and obstruction of officers for resisting arrest. It went to a jury trial, and that jury found him not guilty. They listened to his story, they listened to what the police officer said, and they acquitted him. And that's why we see this civil suit being filed now as a violation of his civil rights.
How much money, how big of a settlement are we talking about here?
Well, I'll tell you what, I think they're probably going to end up with a couple million, because this is egregious. This is off the charts wrong. There were 6 or 7 officers out there. Don't tell me that one man needed to be tased 11 times for them to get him under control. And his wife is in the car screaming the whole time. That's not who you want. Please stop.
All right. We're going to follow that one as well. Holly Hughes, appreciate you dropping by, as we always do.